Hello, you're welcome to Fireworks, where we say just the way it is, no matter whose ox is God. My name is Eshomamo Imodu, and today we'll be taking a look at the Nigerian police force. One security institution that is the closest to Nigerians, but definitely one that you choose to hate. But we must fix the Nigerian police, and it's the responsibility of everyone. So I'm here today with the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, Mohammed, to help us throw light into the challenges and the way forward. Nice to have you on my talk today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw.
Now, Nigerian Police Force, one institution that so many people choose or love to hate, but definitely they cannot do without. Now, what is the problem with the police?
In a nutshell, funding, resources, which is probably one of the reasons why the Police Act that was enacted in 2019 created this Police Trust Fund. It is to bridge that gap of providing resources and funding for the Nigerian police force. It's the major problem. It's been an organization, an agency that has been underfunded over the years. And when I say over the years, I believe personally it is a 4-decade problem that we have with the Nigerian police force when it comes to allocation of resources and funding as a whole.
Now, help me understand, if you say 4 decades when it comes to allocation of resources, traditionally it ought to be funded by the government. Yes. Now, why do you think we've not had such sufficient funding? Is it because of the paucity of funds in the national coffers, or is it an attitude?
I think personally it's an attitude. I think me personally, because I come from a policing background, my late dad was a retired Assistant Inspector General Police. And the problem when I say it comes from funding, it's that I remember growing up, you know, there were rovers in the houses I grew up in VI, I grew up in Ikoyi, police houses, the schooling, but over the years, that has changed. Why? And you mentioned mindset. Mindset in the sense that I believe personally that we as Nigerians, we come from a very military background. So, and I am happy that now, in over 4 decades, this is probably, and this is the first time, not probably, that we have a demilitarized president. So we are having a demilitarized government, and I believe that this will be the chance and the time that we have to actually change this narrative when it comes to policing and police forcing.
When you say demilitarized, is there a problem with the militarized system?
When I say, with the militarized system, you now look at military versus the police. They're 2 different agencies.
Now, they ought to be the same.
Yes, but over time, one is charged for external security, one is charged for internal security. What we now have today is actually the one that's charged for external security dealing with internal security. The one that's meant to be...
Because of the failure of the one charged with it to deal with it. The
police
failed.
The funding, the resources, coming from a demilitarized mindset. If we shift, which is what we need to do right now. And when I say we, I'm saying the society as a whole. We've come from a place whereby, let me not be sure of words, as is fireworks that we're dealing with. We've had military presidents that have removed uniform and worn the agbada to enter office. One thing that I know growing up is that the military and the police, from time, they've always been at loggerheads. That rivalry has now entered into the underfunding of that government, that organization. You have a police problem, you take it to a military leader, they're most likely not going to listen to you.
Because he sees the police as a competitor.
Thank you very much.
Now let's go back to the 80s. I remember in 1979 when we had President Shagari, we had the mobile police then had a tag name. They called them Operation Kill and Go. Not because they kill and go, but because they were very effective, they were strong, they were killed. After the coup in 1983, we began to see, I think the degeneration of the Nigerian police, from my own studies, started from that time. Can you help us also with understanding how and why did we have such underfunding from that time up to this very moment?
You have just said it. There was coups that were happening and there were coups that were fought by the mobile police force then. You know, as you just mentioned, the same mobile police, my dad were part of the people that went to Malaysia to bring this mobile police force it went to the type of trainings and equipment that they were handed over by that government. And over the time, they had seen that if the police had continued in that trajectory, there would have been no coups. And as of that point in time, this is now geopolitics we're discussing. This is now what was going on in the world as of that time, where that was what was favorable.
Coup was favorable then.
And the only people that would have countered those coups
was a strong police force.
Thank you very much. So what will you do as a military leader? I'll make sure that the people that can counter coup me, I stifle them.
The mobile police had a training camp
in Goza.
In Goza, yeah.
Yes. Me, I know from my own history that they went there and they saw what was going on, and they knew that if that continued.
When you said they went there, they saw. Which people went there?
The military.
So they saw the training camp and decided to... Was it that they moved the equipment away or what?
If I remember clearly, Nigerian police force were the first set to use assault rifles. There were APCs. All of those things were withdrawn. Like I said, I grew up knowing that we had rovers in the household. There were APCs. All of those after years, it was a steady decline. And that decline has not shifted. That graph has not. It is a continuous decline with the Nigerian police force.
Then the policemen at that time also were willing partners in decimating the police.
Let me add something to you. No, why I would say it's not, and that's why I say it's societal. Except from underfunding, we've now had a situation whereby the job of the police, they systematically now removed those functions by the creation of things like road safety.
Okay.
VIO.
Traffic division in the police.
Yes, those are traffic division in the police. If I won't say, not to be shy of camera, even the DSS was pulled from the police.
Yes. We used to have the NSO.
Thank you very much, sir. NDLA. We look at EFCC today. We look at ICPC today. Now, all these agencies, civil defense, thank you. The list is quite...
But we cannot totally blame the military. It was also because those managers of the police were also not capable. They also participated in making sure that the police is weakened.
How would you say they were not capable? If I decide not to fund an agency or an organization, which we all know is the funding issue, and I'll create... Because this creation started... Corruption in when? When did corruption come in? When did corruption come into the police? When I go, I'll tell you that the major issue that we have is the welfare issue. And when we say welfare, I'm coming in now to look at how we can, I'm not even looking at the salary structure, because that's past my pay grade. Yeah. How do we create incentives to motivate these police officers to do their work? The truth about it is they are human beings. I've been able to luckily go around, once I assumed office, training facilities of the Nigerian police force across the nation. You cannot send your animal to where they train police officers.
You cannot send your
animal. You cannot send your animal to. There are pictures that I will gladly show you. Went to Rivers State, Noah Tai. That's a peculiar situation. But most around, the places when I went to the one in Illinois, even in Kwara, in the middle of the center of the city, I had to tell them to turn off the cameras.
Is it that the authorities are not aware of that state of affairs?
And that is why we need the media. There needs to be a portrayal of actually what it is that's really going on.
Okay, now let's look at one thing that is going on. You have the Ministry of Police Affairs. You have the Office of the Inspector General of Police. You have also, that's another Police Service Commission. With all these bureaucracies, do we need it in the police? Is it not part of the bottlenecks that is complicating issues in the police?
Would you say some, if you look at the Police Service Commission, like the Ministry of Police Affairs, I have to thank my minister and the ministries as a whole, theirs is policy making.
The Police Service Commission?
The Police, Ministry of Police Affairs.
So why do you need a Police Service Commission?
Oversight, discipline. You know, if you look at it, you have like an IA.
Service Commission? You have them in the military and all that?
The truth about it, it was created by a military government also.
But we're saying that, one, to make it effective, we can streamline
it.
We can streamline to make it effective. Multiple bureaucracies.
But if you look at it, their job functions are different.
Yeah, you can put this job in the same minister in the one's command structure. Because if you're talking of funding, now you have different areas you are pushing your money to, so you have less money for people on the field. You have the bureaucracy in the ministry, you have the bureaucracy in the commission, you have the bureaucracy in the... So
it's an issue.
It's an issue that must be fixed. Your agency, let me use the word your agency, the Police Trust Fund, was supposed to help solve this problem. But in dealing with state governments, because most time we hear state government will buy vehicles for the police and all that. How do you feel if you're a state governor that you don't have control over the commissioner of police and the police in your state and you keep voting money? How will you feel?
Do you need to have control over the police commissioner of the state?
If I give money to a particular agency and I cannot command them what to do, they have to take instruction from up, I'll feel bad about that.
But what if your command is now counter-governance? Because we're all human beings at the end of the day. So if I'm sitting down in my office and I know that I can use my police commissioner to do and undo, there needs to be checks and balances.
Are there not presidents that have used the IG to do and undo?
There are checks and balances.
Why wouldn't there be checks and balances in the case of the states?
But now you now look at it, there are 36 states plus FCT 37, but there's one president.
Yes, globally, the best practice. You have metropolitan police, you have county police. Why should we have a central command structure, still the militarized system?
Going back to that.
I'm talking about efficiency. If the federal cannot fund the police, why don't we think about the state if they can fund, how the police they can fund? So each state will run at its own pace. If Lagos has the capacity, they have the kind of police that will meet them. Don't you think?
But if you look at it that way, it might only be Lagos that can afford to fund the police. We'll now go back to even just the basic minimum wage increase that we've just had recently. How many states can afford it? So if all states cannot afford it, there are some states that can and there are some states that can't. How would you now fund the police in those type of states that don't even afford minimum wage? How are you going to pay the salaries of the police officers? How are you going to buy the equipments, the vehicles, the tracking devices, the things that you need, surveillance, to actually have a 21st century
You already said there's a
police
problem in
officers?
funding now. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the same. It's a general issue.
The command structure is what we are talking about now, the state police. So what's your perspective on the state police?
My perspective is, personally, I, Mohammed of Saidu, is that we are not ripe for it. And why I say there are two reasons. I just explained one now. Not all states can afford it. One. Number two, for you to have a state police, you need to have a strong central police. I believe in checks and balances. Even in America, that they have a state police running with state troopers and all of that, there's still the federal police. That's very strong. Extremely strong. There's no case that will go to those ones. You don't even want your cases to get to those.
The FBI.
Thank you very much. We need to
have the DSS
create,
that can be the central.
we need to create that.
Then
it now goes back to what we were saying earlier. You've now accepted that DSS is a policing work. So we see how we're having parallel
talking about
work.
police reform, because you can't be doing the same thing and expect a different result.
Thank you very
This system
much.
is not paying us, so we must find a way to change it.
We need to focus on the police.
Now let me give you a thought. How about the Nigerian civil defense? What if it is now handed over to the various states? State government take charge of the civil defense in your state, and necessary reforms, laws are enacted to make it like the state police. If we cannot talk about this present police, we have a reform where the states have an equipped system that they can easily push to deal with crisis in their state without waiting for a central command.
So you are looking at the civil defense.
I'm asking, is it not possible?
How it still goes back to the same. How are they funded? Because at the end of the day, you shift which funding? The funding from the federal to the
so that you can concentrate on, the federal can concentrate on the police and fund the police, instead of giving, you have the federal police, you have the civil defense control for the center, you have the military from the center. You want to kill the center? It's overloaded.
It's overloaded, centralized. It's all be funding. But now, what we are now discussing is that those state governments, can they handle the funding requirements of even those civil defense personnel in their states?
It becomes their problem.
These workers, as we speak now, public servants, it's their problem. Some of them are not paying for it. Just salaries, not We're not buying equipment. And when we are talking equipment, we need to know that we don't produce guns, the cars, most of these things. So you are looking at dollar term. Who will have to have that exchange rate, the money they are going to use to buy the equipment for the police officers, for the civil defense officers, for the salaries they're going to pay them, how they're going to cater to them in the States.
So we might not be out of this circle for in the short run.
But we have to start working on it, a step a day. But that step has to be taken, which is why we're here. And the government needs to know. The people need to know. We are all tasked. We're all police officers in our own rights. And this problem, once it's fixed, it goes into our economy. It goes into, because like we've just discussed, internal security is police's work, not military's work.
Okay, now let's quickly go on a break. And when we come back, the police is still our focus on how to fix. But we also turn our searchlight on the trust fund. Power, politics, and accountability on fireworks. No seat is too high, no question too hard. If they hold an office, they are on the hot seat. If they have power, they answer to the people and answer the hard questions.
Only strong men lead, not weak men who don't have knowledge, who don't have capacity, who don't have access.
This is not just talk. This is fireworks.
Corruption in when you cannot send your animal to where they train police officers.
No filter, no favoritism, no fear, no holds barred, unbiased, unafraid, unfiltered.
Why should people elected into office and are being funded by the treasury of the state, and then their salary and allowances will be treated in secrecy?
Fireworks, only on TVC News. Yeah, welcome back. Now, if you're just joining us, we have been talking about the Nigerian police, and right before me is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, Mohammed Saidu. Now, nice to have you back here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me quickly talk a bit about Nigerian Police Trust Fund. When people hear the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, a lot of people look at it and say, wow, so much money. And that this might be the cesspit of corruption. What do you think about that?
No. Would you say so much money? No. First of all,
because when you hear the kind of money, there was a former head, the kind of money that the ICPC is investigating, you would tend to believe that they have so much money at their disposal. So what is happening?
Where's the so much money? I wish I can see the so much money that we're talking about. The trust fund, if you even look at the resources and where we are mandated to receive our funding, we're looking at 0.5% of the FAC allocation, a 0.005%.
That is huge.
No, 0.005% of net profits. Now, but the truth is that over time, we're discussing to our state governments. Rivers State took the trust fund to court in 2022, which we're still in court now. As of then, the trust fund wasn't, so we took them to appeal now to see, because we as the trust fund were not plaintiffs in that case. So we now joined the case as the trust fund. And we are hoping that, so those things have actually restricted funding also to the trust fund. Now it looks, in the grand scheme of things, but like I mentioned earlier, there are things that we don't do in this country. When you are buying equipment, we are buying it in dollars. By the time you do the conversion today, I was just told recently to buy a brand new Hilux is almost 90 million naira.
Now, under your leadership, what is the transparency level when you, for instance, if you want to procure equipment? Because we had a case of equipment purchased some time back that became scandalous. ICPC got involved. But under you, have you tried to shift away from those dark clouds?
We have a BPP, we have a procurement process, and we have the Bureau of Public Procurement, which has their standard rules on how we should procure things. I believe that any agency that follows the due process with the BPP should not be caught in, because they do their homework. They go as far as not just verifying the contractors, but also the capability and capacity, the type of equipment or cars or vehicles, whatever it is that is being purchased. Most of all of this have to go through the BPP process. And so it is for us to make sure that anything that we're doing goes through those processes. I would not touch anything that has not been approved or been objected or not objected by the BPP.
So anything approved for purchase, the trust fund directly purchases it, or there's another agency that handles it as a
No, we can do direct purchases.
We do direct purchase.
But after I've discussed with, after I've sent my names, the list and everything I want to do to BPP.
Okay. So once you get the approval from BPP, you go ahead to do the purchase.
We can go ahead. We deal with the Ministry of Police Affairs. Those are oversight ministry to make sure that everything goes through its due process. Yes.
Okay. People talk about barracks, because I remember, I think sometime late last year, there was this issue that, look, the police barracks is one, if you compare police barracks, naval barracks, army barracks, air force barracks, oh, you don't want to even sleep in police barracks. You don't want to use police barracks. So dirty and so unkept. And the government started demolishing police barracks. And the next time we had that these barracks, the construction was given to developers. And I wonder, I asked, why was it given to developers? When you build a military barracks, were military barracks given to developers to build, or government directly get involved?
Now, it's above my pay grade. But one thing I can tell you, it goes back to funding. One of the reasons why that would have been done is because those developers
have the capacity.
To do it.
If I build a house with my resource, the officers, do they have the capacity to rent those houses or to buy those houses from me?
There has to be an arrangement to make sure the police officers, it has to be.
So what is the present arrangement for the police officers to own their houses?
I can't really tell, but from the trust fund, what we're looking at, and we have discussed with the Ministry of Police Affairs, is how we can make police officers own their own homes. And why I say own their own homes, when we came on board, we signed an agreement with Family Homes Funds, and I looked at the situation. The workforce of the police itself is actually more than military and everything. There's 350,000 police personnel, which they're still understaffed for the population of Nigeria. But we're looking at a case whereby from now, the monies are already deducted from national housing, the NHF funds, from salaries already. How can these police officers own homes? So we've gone around to partner with state governments, in the sense that you guys, state governments, the governors of those states, they are the chief security officers. They give us land. We, with Family Homes Funds, they build affordable, cheap houses. We want to get 2-3 bedroom bungalows that can be built for police officers. Yes, whereby the money is being deducted directly
not
from
for
the
agents.
Services. For police officers across the federation. So with that welfare also, we not just only looked at the housing, we now looked at agric, farming. We can have farm clusters. We've signed an agreement with NALDA, National Agency Land Development on Agric, on how we can have farm clusters. We also did that with Enugu State Government. So they have land for housing and we have land for agric, not the police officers, but it's family members as farmers. So there's extra revenue being generated. You can feed your family. There's activities that actually would boost our economy from the police standpoint.
What is the cooperation level of the various states? How many states do you already have?
Right now, we've Enugu states, Kano states, Niger states. We've discussed with Lagos, Kogi states is on board. These are governors that I've personally met. What I even want to do now is to go to the governors forum and have this one discussion with all of them and have the buy-in.
If you wake up an average Nigerian, you ask the average Nigerian, which of the security agencies in Nigeria is the most corrupt? They will just, in fact, they won't think twice before they will say that it's the police. You see them on the road.
But do you believe it's a reflection of our society?
But it's like they took it deeper.
They didn't take anything deeper. The police is a reflection of every society. So if you are saying the police is corrupt, our society is corrupt.
You go to make statements, you buy the paper.
Should I help you with that? The Inspector General of Police, it was on live TV. He said his budgetary allocation for fueling of operational cars can only last in 4 months in a year. There are 12 months in a year.
4 months in a year.
4 months.
So where does it get the revenue from?
Thank you very much. What happens in the remaining 8 months?
So that is why they will not devise other means to make the money?
What would you do? Are you not a human being?
You're asking me what I would do?
I'm asking you.
So what will you do?
No, don't throw the question at me. I
here.
gave you a statement,
Okay.
which we all know was televised. That is what the budgetary allocation is for. Let me add another one to you, and this is inside information. A divisional police station is giving 45,000 per quarter.
No, 45
1,000 naira per quarter.
to do what?
Okay, thank you very much.
In the budgetary allocation.
Yes, sir.
And we have crisis in Benue State, we have crisis in Kogi, we have crisis in Edo, we have crisis in Lagos, we have in Abuja, we have all over. And the police ought to do this with 45,000 in divisional police.
Quarterly. So do it by month and do it by per day.
Let me mention in closing, there are 3 things I want you to help me if you have knowledge of the state of things. There was an 11 billion equipment procurement scandal in 2021. Were you aware of that? I know you were not on the seat then. That's concerned about the trust fund.
Not aware.
There was a diversion of 5.2 billion and equipment scams. Now, in a nutshell, what I'm asking is, can you guarantee a police trust fund that is scandal-free in the immediate future, even after you leave office, that you can beat your chest and say, I run a transparent institution?
That is what that's what I stand by, and that's what we stand by. Transparency, integrity, and accountability. So most of the things and everything that we're doing here, except from following the due processes for it, we're also making sure that we carry all involved parties along as we're doing these transactions. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
That is all we can take on Fireworks this week. Let's make it another opportunity next time on this same channel. Bye for now.